introduction. My name is Kerry, and it's been a great pleasure to welcome Venerable Amy back to Gem Ladies. She's been many times before, so very pleased. Thank you very much for coming back. And just to make sure you have your mobile phones turned off, those who just arrived. This recording is being recorded by audio and video, so whatever you say will be broadcast. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming. We're coming back to see some familiar faces, some new faces. Is anyone driving to Liverpool tonight? Just checking. Okay. 'Cause I do have to end at, I think we end at 8 o'clock, is that right? Because I have a train to Liverpool, so.
Amy, your train isn't until about 20 past 9, I don't think, so you have got a little bit.
I think it's at 9:06 or something, so. Is that
The train
right?
is at 9 minutes past 9.
9 minutes past 9, okay. I thought it said 9, anyway, it's close to that, so I just want to make sure that I, don't miss that. Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you for coming. I've been a nun for about 15 years. I've been around the Dharma close to 30 years. Very happy to be back here. I think it's the third time I've been here. So thank you for coming. And we have a talk about happiness tonight. Practical, I saw it said practical techniques and things. So I might be coming at this from a different way. And there will be time for questions and answers. And I'm sorry it's so short because we had a nice weekend last year. So hopefully in the future we can do a little bit more. But thanks for coming out on this Friday night. So let's just bring ourselves here into the space a little bit. Get ourselves directed with a good motivation. So if you'd like, some of you already have a pretty active meditation practice. The main part is to have your spine as extended as possible, as if the back is straight. Perfectly fine to sit in a chair to meditate. Just have your feet straight down so the body is balanced. And there's many variations on the posture in different traditions. So the main thing you want to do is make yourself comfortable as possible. Okay? We often may place the hands at the level of the navel, the right palm on the left face up. You can try that. Thumbs are touching. Okay? Kind of like this. Okay? But it's right against the body. So the body's erect. If your hands are out, you tend to slouch. Okay, so it's a very erect posture that is also relaxed. So check that your shoulders are not up by your ears. And as most of you have had probably busy weeks, just allow your eyes to close. And if you're very, very tired, I would let a little bit of light in. If you find you're very distracted, close your eyes. And take a couple minutes to scan your body, releasing any tension you find you're holding. Keep a normal, natural breath moving through your system. And if you encounter any tension, just allow the breath to open up some space and bringing yourself to as comfortable a place as possible. take a moment right now to reflect on your purpose for being here this evening. There's a lot of other things we could be doing this evening. So you've chosen to come here, and you may get some information this evening that may help you open your heart and mind towards something more positive, that will make you happier, more peaceful. Fantastic. And in our tradition, we're also focused on maybe using that experience of being happier and more peaceful in helping others. In helping others become happier and more peaceful as well. So if you'd like to expand beyond the borders of yourself, considering other beings in your motivation, fantastic. But take a moment, you're directing your awareness now, rather than just sitting here and taking in the information. You set it a good intention for this time, you're directing your awareness in a more positive way. So just take a moment and set a positive intention. And bring your awareness to your breath, normal, natural breath. So as you focus on the air moving in and out of your nostrils, let's focus there instead of the abdomen rising and falling, just the air moving in and out of your nostrils. If you find at all that your mind is wandering and you've lost the object of the breath, can you just observe without any further judgment or elaboration? Notice the mind wanders, and then with gentleness directed toward yourself, bring the mind back to the breath. Okay, and just observe right now for a moment. Sometimes in your distraction, so the mind wanders off the breath, what is bubbling up in your mind? Here we are, Friday night, it's the weekend. You may have had a long, busy week. Do you ever notice the mind? What's it like, your mind, right now, in this present moment? So please relax and slowly open your eyes. I'm sorry, I've just got over a month-long flu. I crawled out of India with something, don't get it, it was horrible. And it's like still kind of hanging on, you know, this little thing in my throat. So I do hope you're well this winter. And I really want to thank everyone at Jamyang Leeds, Carrie and Wendy, the previous director, and all the other directors that came before, and all the people that helped the center. And thank you also so much to Catherine for organizing a fantastic tour for me in a very, very professional way, and it's made it so easy. So I'm very grateful to all the people that also make this center possible, for you for coming here like that. So I just want to ask you, in looking at happiness right now, how to make ourselves happy, I think it's a juicy topic. So what goes on with your mind? Some of you are more experienced looking at your mind. Some are brand new to that. So as we're just sitting here a little bit meditating, okay, what does anybody notice about your mind tonight? Yes?
I don't know. I got a vibe off you, as the Jamaicans would say. My stepdad is Jamaican. And when you asked that question, what was in my mind, I thought it's excitement.
Excitement?
And it's the other word that came very strong. And love.
And love.
I felt that usual devotion to Buddhist teachers. It's almost everyone. Just that. It's weird. It's great.
Great, so you have love arising in your mind, right? That's a very nice experience, right? Some positive things in the mind. What's the excitement like?
It's like my body starts to vibrate. You know when you shiver, when you're cold? You can have the opposite. And it's not only to you, it's the room that people have come not to go to the pub or beat people up or... I can feel that.
Right.
I feel
Okay.
vibrations.
Okay, great, thank you, thank you. Other experiences any people are having? Yes?
Well, for me, I felt anxiety, if you want me to be honest. My mind is anxious.
Yes.
Because I'm finishing maybe an area of my life where there was love, and perhaps beginning of it there is going to be, but I'm in between. So but that's what I experienced.
So it's some
Yeah,
anxiety
I'm in the,
in a transition,
yes.
and that
Yes.
can be a little unnerving, isn't
yes, that's the correct word, isn't
it?
it?
Yeah, unnerving, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very, thank you. Very kind of real experiences, these two things, absolutely. Other experiences people having?
Get a bit of, like, just start wandering off, daydreaming. I always had it as a kid, just can't help it. And then thinking about what I'm having for tea when I get home.
Mm-hmm. And it's really common. It's not like you're alone. He's the only person in the room. So also, I think what's very helpful in being real, and I know a lot of you may have heard this before, because I think fairly experienced people in here and some new people, is we get this idea, my mind starts wandering, and then suddenly I'm the only one in the room who can't meditate. So we have a lot of stories that we're layering on ourselves that simply are not true. So I'm really asking you, and most of the people I teach around the world, I find have these elaborate stories about themselves. Have you ever poked your story, challenged your story to question, is it accurate? There's a validity to it. Yeah, there's a validity that you were distracted. You daydream, sure. But then if you start elaborating, because I actually said, when you are off the breath, I said, can you just observe without any further judgment or elaboration? How many of you had judgment and elaboration that went on? It's really common, isn't it? It's very common. It's a habit. It's simply a habit. But the beginning is you have to wake up to what are the habits in your mind. How does your mind work? And for some people, if it's the first time you're meditating, you're brand new, we're not used to watching our mind. We're fantastic with distracting ourselves. So I don't want to watch my mind. It's not only that, but when I watch my mind, there's these pockets in the mind, and I notice sometimes fear and things that are unnerving, and I'm kind of daydreaming, I don't have any focus, and there's some excitement of a vibrational feeling that might be pleasant but might not be so pleasant. It might end up too much, and these, what I'm going to call uncomfortable situations, right? Does that resonate? Am I communicating? You know what happens? So then it's great, let me just get the remote control and turn the TV on and blot that out. Because it's uncomfortable. We don't want to be uncomfortable. Okay. My culture, the United States, is probably the most, I'd say, maybe paramount in the world of wanting to avoid discomfort. Most people in the United States. I'd say, this is going to be a stretch, but I think we do it better. Can I venture to say that? I think we do it better, avoiding discomfort. We try, desperately. We hate discomfort. And I remember I was at a, what's that? Yeah?
Good job.
Good job, right? And I was at a teaching in Los Angeles many years ago. The Dalai Lama was teaching, packed sports arena. And then at the end, you could submit questions on a piece of paper to the interpreter. And they wanted written questions, and the first question that came out, and I'm not sure why Jim Bub chose this question, the interpreter, but it was a real slam for us. And the question was, what's the easiest way to get enlightened? It's a real American question, right? And His Holiness started crying. We brought His Holiness to tears with that kind of question. Started crying, and then he manifested wrathfulness. You Americans, you always want it so easy. Okay? So for me it was a real wake-up of, this is a path that takes effort, and we know how to make effort. We just don't make effort in the most positive ways. But we know how to do effort. That's not a problem for anybody in the UK. You all, I'm sure, just had very busy weeks. So effort's okay. But the discomfort, and then my avoidance of the discomfort, and our various refuges to avoid discomfort, which are not healthy, some of them, right, of where do I escape to, that's something that's worth looking at. And the daydreaming and all these other, like, what is unnerving me? What happens if I be with the anxiety? Okay, what if I just be with the excitement and the vibration? What if I be with distraction? Because meditation, technically, and I'm sorry please tell me if I'm repeating myself and this is boring you, honestly, because we can go on to other things. But meditation, the word gom in Tibetan, G-O-M, technically meditation. Okay, it doesn't mean meditation, it means to familiarize, to habituate yourself. What are you habituating yourself with? Virtuous mind states. positive mind states. We familiarize, we habituate. That's why we call it practice. Meditation, we practice. What it means is it's a rehearsal. You rehearse, right? Some of you are into your technology. How many hours a day do you rehearse with your technology? Do you ever ask yourself that, right? How many? You saw me with the cell phone. Well, I'm on the road all the time. It's useful, okay? And I'm pretty good about not distracting myself with it. I'm actually very practiced with it because it can be a big time waster. But to be honest with yourself, how many hours are time wasters on your phone? Okay? So it's something where these are patterns that you get going. There's some of you in this room, when you wake up in the morning, okay, there might not be a motivation started right there. I start practicing in bed. I come into consciousness. All of a sudden I'm like, you wake, there's a moment you know you're awake, and I wake up and I'm in the Amy body. Like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, okay, thank you, I'm still in this life. I have a good life. It is not without its problems. Okay, but did you ever appreciate when you wake up and you find that you're in the life that you're in, even with some of the challenges, but we have it, we're not in Syria, and we're not in some migrant boat that's sinking in. I think everyone in this room, I know you have your problems, I don't know all about your lives. It's pretty good so far. We probably have a warm bed, we have food, you have decent clothing, and you got yourself into this room. That's pretty good. Do you ever appreciate that first thing in the morning? And you can go into other appreciation. But that's the first thing I do. How many of you reach for your phone? Right? I know people are embarrassed. Okay? I'm not going to say I reach for it. But is that your first thing? And what are you doing on the phone? What do you have to do on the phone? I see people. So it's okay to give yourself tech holidays. I do. I don't turn the phone on. There's days, computer, don't look at the computer. Because then I can be with my mind. So meditation, let me go back to that. Gom, habituating myself. Okay? But you're not actually meditating. It's not meditating. Okay? You are being in meditation. You're being in meditation. We are human beings. So can we be sometimes? Okay, so what I want to talk about as far as happiness, okay? I love this. I read this book over a year ago. I was on a retreat. Great. I was leaving a center and I got 5 months retreat, okay? In near the remote retreat center I go to in Mount Everest, Laudo. You just went there, right? You went to Laudo. That last hill, murderous, isn't it?
Well, it was completely, it was kind of like a blizzard when I was going up as well.
Oh, well, yeah, and you got a blizzard. I had
Yeah,
a
I
blizzard
got a
once.
blizzard
That
as well.
makes it even more special. This is a place near Mount Everest, seriously. I forget in meters, 13,000 feet. So the last hill, you're at about 12,000 feet, right? And then you hit your second monstrous hill of the day. For me, usually it's that day I'm doing. And it's really very, very difficult. It's like 6 steps, and then you're waiting. It takes about 2 hours to do that last bit, I'd say, to get up that last hill. And if you're in a snowstorm, I've been in a snowstorm up it, it's very challenging. It's very challenging. And then you get to Laudo, where Lama Zopa Rinpoche's sister lives. This is Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the guiding teacher of this center. His sister's a nun in her 70s. Quite a character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She has broken English, and she's a real character, and one of the loves of my life. And they have a very remote retreat center, and you can go up there. You can combine it with your trekking. And so Catherine had the good fortune to get there. So I did this retreat, and there's a good library now in books. So Pema Chodron, I think we're familiar with her, an American nun who's written some phenomenal books. I highly recommend. She was a student of Trungpa Rinpoche from a different lineage, and I stumbled upon one of her newest books. I can't remember the name of it. It's unfortunately not listed in this thing, but it's something about the delectable, interest of being happy or something. It was a very nice book, very practical book. Her books are very practical. And chapter 1 is the fundamental ambiguity of being human. So this really attracted me. And anyway, I read the book, but this chapter I really like the most. The fundamental ambiguity of being human. So I mentioned about being in meditation. Can we be, because we are human beings, instead of doing, instead of being a human doing? Okay? Can I just be? But what a doing does is, I'm uncomfortable right now, let me put the TV on. I need to do something. You will come in after the weekend, if you have a Monday through Friday job. On Monday, there's a thing of, what did you do this weekend? I remember sometimes when I first got into the Dharma, and I came into this office where I worked, and I was learning to meditate, and I was kind of having these little mini retreats in my room, and people say, what did you do? And then I'd kind of say, well, I didn't really do anything. And they're like, oh, sorry. I was like, why? Like, I had a great weekend. You know, I had a great weekend being. Wasn't really doing, I was being. So a little exercise you could do after you leave here is, how are you? And how are you being? Whether you're walking out of here, are you being with walking out of here? Are you being with driving your car? Are you being with taking the bus? Are you being with having a snack later, if that's what you're doing? How are you being? Talking to whomever's home? It's very interesting to be, okay? And then the fundamental ambiguity, what's that about? Okay, because I want to be happy. So what's the ambiguity? We have to face the ambiguity of being human, okay? And I quote from Suzuki Roshi, the Zen master, one of the first quotes in this chapter, life is like stepping into a boat that is about to sail out to sea and sink. Okay? That's what we're facing. I'm sorry to break it to you, okay? But the fact, because I'm aware of that now, because I'm much more aware of that, and I'm going to talk about samsara. Okay, we've heard this word. It's a Sanskrit term, to cycle, to turn. What are you turning through? Birth, old age, sickness, and death. And all of that is suffering. Okay? I know there's a miracle of birth. There's some real beautiful things. There's even beautiful things about death. About somebody having a good death. There can be beauty in old age, but there's suffering in all of those things. Okay, birth, old age, sickness, and death. Excuse me. Okay? Samsara. That's what samsara is. Okay? So with my awareness of that it sucks, okay? Seriously, it does. But with my awareness of that, I enjoy life a lot more. Why? Because when my car breaks down or doesn't start, that's its nature. Does it have to ruin my day? No. Right? You get a flu. I had this really, really bad flu in India. There was something going around. 30,000 people went to these teachings with the Dalai Lama. It's a dusty area. India can be quite filthy. Okay? Even the Dalai Lama got a cold. So we got a cold. A lot of us got a cold. I'm in a section sitting with a lot of nuns, Western nuns. You get a cold. Okay, you're clogged up. Then the cough comes, right? And so darling, the people in this section were Singaporeans. Chinese, Singaporeans, right? So they're so darling, and they're all throwing like lozenges at me and cough drops. I was like Typhoid Mary. And the nuns in my section, my close friends, these Western nuns, were all kind of like, you know, just sit her over there. But everybody got something. We all had something. Then the cold after a week was fine. I had 2 days. All of a sudden I'm like, I feel better. I think I'm better. You know, in the middle I was also the mucus queen. I never had so much stuff coming out of my body, right? But all of a sudden I had 2 days, cough was subsiding, I'm feeling better. Then I got slammed by this flu. That's how it came in, the flu. It gave you this little teaser cold, couple days off, and then boom, fever, chills, body aches, headache, and the cold came back again, like relentlessly, right? And then for a month I was like that. Another 3 weeks of that. It was so fun, right? So, but how do you want to be with your flu? My mind was really happy. I got to the teachings every day. I had a face mask, trying not to, when it was over, I got back in the car, we had a little carpool thing, and I went right to bed. Tried to be around as few people as possible, made it through the teachings, don't think I infected anybody, don't really know, but okay. So again, the suffering is going to be there. What's your response to the suffering? Okay. If your response is a little bit more open-hearted, clear with awareness, you can be happy through it. I really wasn't miserable. with the flu, and my body felt awful. But my mind, I was like, well, okay. So how do you want to do that when you know that the ship is about to set out to sail and set out to sea and sink? Okay? So here's the thing, how can we live wholeheartedly in the face of impermanence, knowing that one day we're going to die? Because part of our being is a huge avoidance with that situation. Okay, all these other things are distractions that, first of all, there's change. You want to be happy? How do you relate to change? You're in a transition, you said. It's difficult, isn't it? Okay? So this is something we want to practice. So you're a little bit like, I need to practice, I need to rehearse getting better with change, because there's going to be a lot of changes in life. There already are. Okay? How do you respond to change? How do you deal, I'm just curious, how do you deal with little changes? Not so well, okay? So where the pain comes, right, with your resistance. Did you ever notice the pain comes when I'm resisting the change? If we're open and fluid, there's really no problem. But as soon as I resist, like that, so your job is, you have to start with the small changes. You want to practice in bite-sized chunks. You're not going to get enlightened today, maybe. I can't speak for everybody, I don't know your minds, okay? But the standard is, in my culture, we wanted our enlightenment 2 weeks ago wrapped up in a nice gold box. Okay? We think it's going to be instantaneous. It's not like that. It's lifetimes of practice. So you move along. The Lam Rim is steps on the path. Steps, stages. It's gradual. Okay? So thank you for being aware that you have difficulty with small changes. That's your practice. So something shifts. A friend calls you, you're having lunch, you're looking forward to it all week. I can't have lunch with you today. How do you respond? That's what you work, that's your rehearsal. Oh, things change. I've had to cancel things. Didn't want to. Where's your mind? Where's your mind? Oh, okay. Now if a friend continually cancels on you, over and over, then it's worth having a discussion with them. But if it's one time they cancel, plans change. You get irritated. You get angry. Is it helpful? I'm not happy in this time. So that's where you're going to work. Okay, plans change. Have I changed plans with people? So what's my response? Why don't I just stay open and spacious? I could do something else today. I know I was looking forward to that, but it's not happening. Why ruin my day? Why ruin my lunch? I can still go out to lunch. I can take somebody else out to lunch. Or I can have lunch by myself. Am I okay to have lunch by myself and feel satisfied? Okay? So you practice with those because bigger changes are going to come. I can't deal with the bigger changes until I'm good at the little changes. The biggest change is, probably for most people, your death. So we want to be ready with that. Like, what is it about, again, can we live wholeheartedly in the face of impermanence? Wholeheartedly. Is this open fully? Is it my whole heart facing it, or is it just this little box? We like to make boxes in the heart-mind space. We make boxes. We put people in the boxes because I think I feel safer. Right? We compartmentalize. I've seen people when I travel, because I travel a lot. They say, where are you from? And if I say the States, and usually this is with Europeans, okay, and Brits, I'll put you all in that category, okay? And when I say the States, sometimes there's like, oh. They got me all figured out, because I'm from the United States. They don't know anything about me, but they've got it sorted, okay? So, great, you just put me in a little box here, and the thing is, boxes have walls, and they make compartments, so it takes up the spacious, clear, knowing luminosity of my mind that's really my mind. Okay? So it only affects you. It only clutters this up. When you're around His Holiness the Dalai Lama, there's no walls there. And it's and that's unnerving, because we're not around people like that. It's blissful space of loving kindness is the experience I've had around him. And you're kind of like bowled over, because we're not around people. Most people have some walls up to protect, to protect what I think I am, like that. To protect my doing, my being a doing. like that. So His Holiness just, and when you see His Holiness, there's no boxes of you're American and you're better and you're, He's like, hello. He's excited about everybody. He's got that loving energy about everybody. That's what's in His mind. That's what's in His heart-mind experience. And like, it was nice when you said, I felt love in my heart. Fantastic. Okay? That's something almost innate with your mind, love. But we cover it over with our walls and our protection and our fears, our anxiety. It's very normal. It's just natural for a human being. The human condition is flawed, and we're going to experience all these things we experience that block us from being happy. It is normal. So don't lay a trip on yourself because you're in a transition and it's a little difficult, you know, because I wasn't concentrating so well, because I'm, you know, things are vibrating too much or whatever. We don't need to add to that and make a trip. Can you just be with it? Sometimes I'm just uncomfortable. So there I was being with my flu. You know, at the end it got very bad. Like it should have been over. So suddenly what happened is in my being, I noticed an anxiety came up. I'm really sick. Do I need to do anything about it? Like other than what I'm doing? Like, you know how the mind suddenly, you doubt and you have, should I be, it should be gone already. It's not gone. I'm exhausted. Absolutely exhausted. Right? And then I think I have this English tour coming up. The UK tour. I want to do that tour. I really enjoy the centers. I really like the people. I don't want to cancel or anything. So then my mind starts, I need to be good for that tour. You can't force it. I need to be well. That creates more anxiety. So then I had to go back, lying in bed in meditation, being with the anxiety. That's not going to make me better. Right? Okay. So some of you are familiar with Tonglen meditation? Tonglen meditation? Some people? Okay. Tonglen meditation, if you're not familiar, is giving and taking. Giving and taking. You're actually taking first before you give. What are you taking? Others' suffering. What am I giving them? My happiness. It's radical. It's radical compassion. Okay? So we don't prevalently teach this because it's so extreme. Who wants to take somebody's suffering? So I wouldn't leave here tonight and go out in the street and be like, these Buddhists, they want to take on people's suffering. Isn't that weird? I don't usually march my Dharma out there. I wait till somebody really asks me, or just set an example yourself. Okay? But it's all you're doing in this meditation is an attitude. It's simply an attitude. I have the wish and the desire to take on others' suffering. It's not harming me. All it's doing, I'm visualizing a constricted knot at my core. Okay? And the knot is all my selfishness. Self-cherishing, self-absorption. And as I take on others' suffering, just visualize, right? You can visualize whatever represents that to you, whatever images, whatever words, whatever light, colored lights like that, comes in as I breathe. It goes to that constricted knot, chipping away, dissolving, purifying, my self-cherishing. So then I have a much bigger space from which to offer. And from that space of more peace and happiness, I offer all the goodness I've experienced as I exhale to whomever I'm thinking about, whomever I choose to think about, can even be myself. We need love and compassion. And I offer, in whatever images represent that to me, happiness, goodness, peace, like that. Visualize. Taking and giving. Tonglen, taking and giving. So me being with the flu, and then noticing the anxiety coming up, I laid there, I did Tonglen meditation. I had the flu, what could I do? I had to lay in bed, wasn't going to do anything. You know, drinking lots of hot liquids, and right? So there I'm laying there, my whole body's hurting. You just do some meditation. I thought all these other beings, 30,000 people, a lot of them are sick. Maybe not as sick as me, but some worse. And then I had friends recently with cancer that were dying, right? So all these people could be so much worse, right? But all these people, I just want to think about them for a moment. Let me take on their illness in my flu, right? I'm not going to get their illness, but I'm going to use it to purify my self-cherishing. From a place of deeper peace and happiness, I'm going to offer that to them. All the good health. Let them be free. It's just an attitude. Just an attitude. So suddenly, me lying there in bed with that thought, a little bit of that practice, right? My mind much happier, more peaceful. The anxiety dissolved, and I'm like, I think I'm doing everything I can do. You know, and if the English tour has to get canceled, what can I do? If I can't get on the plane on that date, I'll get on it another day. If I have to go to a hospital or a doctor, I have some friends, they'll take me there, right? That's it. What can you do? You do the best you can do. That's all you can do. Okay? So being with this, wholeheartedly, how open, how whole is the heart in this space? We're usually working with pieces of our heart. Buddhist practice is getting it fully developed and expanded. And then love starts to manifest because it's spontaneous with that experience. And love is vast, healing, expansive, unlimited. Unlimited, okay? So you have to come to Liverpool this weekend if you want to hear more about love and attachment, because we don't have all this much time to talk about that. Okay, so and then to continue, what is it like to realize we can never completely and finally get it all together? What's that like for you? We can't ever completely and finally get it all together. Don't we have an idea every day you wake up, here's my list. This is what I need to accomplish. Or this is what I want to do this year. Or this is what I'm going to do when I meet with this person. Or even if you have lunch with a friend, here's how I want it to go. It's continually, we're constantly, can we ever just be at lunch with my friend? You know, how often do we just be? So I find meditation is just such a useful tool for that, and so much contributes to my happiness. So however you need to, please try and get a consistent meditation practice going for yourself, because it will inform and support everything else you're doing. So you can do because you're being, you're fundamentally being, and you're comfortable being with whatever's arising in your mind. Does that make sense? Okay? So if you're kind of like, I don't know how to get a meditation practice started, okay, so they have some wonderful books here. One I recommend, How to Meditate. I'm sure it's in the library. I saw it in the office. How to Meditate is by an old friend of mine, Kathleen McDonald, an old friend of a few of ours. She's our longest, one of our longest term nuns in our tradition. Kathleen McDonald, the name she usually goes by is Venerable Sangye Kadro. Venerable Sangye Kadro. It's a basic beginning meditation book. I still use it. Why? Everything's in there. Posture, motivation, how to sit, how to get it going in your house, and then you have different meditations, a variety. So the meditations have a little preamble, what to think about, a couple pages. Then it has the actual meditation, right? You don't have to have anything memorized. You have the book in front of you. You sit down. I have 15 minutes right now, you say. Okay? You read a couple sentences when you get to the actual practice. Close your eyes and you think more deeply about those sentences. Take a moment. Then you finish that, go to the next couple sentences. That's how I learned to meditate. Right? Then if you can, come to some meditation classes. Try it. If you can't get it going yourself, come once a week if there's some kind of meditation component like that. Some kind of thing gets it going. I'm getting a little habitual thing. Somebody's leading and explaining, and there's different ways to meditate. No problem. But slowly, like that. And then you go home, and the next day you try a little bit. You have to set aside some time. If you can try and you start with 10 minutes, morning, 10 minutes night. You like what's going on, you can expand it. And then you can learn from people here, other people, how do they do it. Okay? You miss a day, you start the next day. Miss 2 days, you start the next day. Every day for me is begin again. Begin again. It's okay. Every day I'm showing up for my mind. Why? Because I want to be happy. So what showing up for my mind means is I start again in bed. You know? So when I asked you, the second part of the meditation, or part of it, I just said, what's going on in your mind? You know, and then you notice I'm daydreaming, I'm this. Do you ever, some of you are you've been doing this for years, watching your mind. Initially, if you're new, you're like, what does she mean by that? What does she mean by that? Okay, so you want to start to notice, most of you know when you wake up in the morning, I think you're pretty clear early on, are you in a good mood or a bad mood, right? Early on you encounter the day, and I know, somebody I talked to tonight had a very challenging day today. And you do have days where all the windows and doors are shutting, right? I mean, not a good day. But often early on I'll notice, mine's a bit tight. Sometimes when I get out of bed, you can sometimes adjust it with the motivation. But let's say you get off and you're off doing your day and the doors and windows are shutting. A little miscommunication with my partner. I go into work. Now there's a little bit tension. Oh, that's not what I meant. And little tussle there. And this mail didn't arrive and I didn't get the project. And suddenly, okay, so early on if I know that I'm in trouble, I might label it I'm in trouble. Can you be kind to yourself? Okay, based on my practice, I'm aware pretty early that the day's not going well. Sometimes it just happens. Okay, I don't even label it a problem. All I'm doing is observing. Okay, when I grew up, I'm really dating myself now, but I'm looking around the room, some of us are at the same age here, okay? We had an American show called Lost in Space. Did anyone ever see the show? Okay, Lost in Space, he had a robot, and Will Robinson was the name of the kid.
Danger.
And he had a robot, right? That's it.
Yeah.
So sometimes when it's not going well, because I'm an American person, right, I have these little Americanisms or these things, and all of a sudden in my mind I'll have a little danger, Will Robinson, danger. Right, seriously. But what it does is, that's a little cue for me. Now I have other cues. But the cue is, be gentle to myself. Please, Amy, take care. I just said inside my head, please take care. Why? Because that's when we're going to make mistakes. That's when I'm going to lash out at somebody and later regret it and go, oh my God, I didn't mean that. Now I've further alienated this person I'm challenged with anyway at work. Now I snapped at them. Okay? So when you know you're in a bad mood by watching my mind, okay, that's part of my practice. I'm going to make sure I'm taking very good care not to get into more trouble. It's going to cause more problems. Okay, this is responsibility on the Bodhisattva path. Okay, we practice a Bodhisattva path in this tradition. Bodhisattva is a Buddhist saint trying to achieve bodhicitta, a Sanskrit term. Bodhi is enlightenment, citta, mind. Mind of enlightenment. The mind of enlightenment is I want to get enlightened to benefit all living beings. I want to cherish you more than myself. That's what bodhisattvas are practicing. We are bodhisattva warriors. We do not go to war with beings, we go to war with our delusions. Okay? So part of me going to war with my delusion is waking up, I'm in a bad mood, take care. That's me going to war with my delusions. My responsibility, because I'm on a bodhisattva path, is to take care of others, as well as myself, but to take care of others. So I have to be careful. Then some days I wake up, spacious and lovely, feeling really good. Okay. Those are the days, then I need to have a difficult conversation with someone, those are the days I'm going to choose to do it. That's my wisdom. I feel really spacious. I'm thinking much more of the other person. That's a great time to have that conversation. You understand? Everything informed by compassionate wisdom. That's always my underlying motivation. Right? It serves you well. I am happier because of that. Okay? I'm taking responsibility for my mind. And some days my mind is completely uncooperative. But I'm showing up for it. I'm just like, okay. I was on retreat, I mentioned I had 5 months retreat about 1.5 years ago. And I do retreat every year. Okay, but that was just a longer retreat. And what happens is my mind. Right? I did several sessions a day. Right? Every session was different. Some sessions, some days, mind cooperating and building up a little energy and things are going along well. And then suddenly, one day, couldn't concentrate on anything. Right? But that was only one session. So what I did is, based on having, developing a little bit of wisdom, skillful means, I noticed, well, I can't concentrate at all right now in this session. Okay, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do some other prayers. I can't really meditate formally. So I got other things. That's skillful, again. That's me recognizing my mind. Oh, hi there. Okay, so now you're doing that. So I'll just switch gears. Flexibility. Right? It makes me happier. Because then I did some other practice and I felt good about that. And I'm like, okay. Then the next session, took a break. The next session, the mind was cooperating. Because it was all gentle. You can't force stuff. We're trying to force stuff. I'm not in a good mood today. I should be in a good mood. Get the shoulds out of the room, right? What's a should? Right? This is who you are. This is who we are. The fundamental ambiguity. You know, I'm feeling anxious and unnerved right now. I'm in a transition. Well, in a transition, you need to take better care of yourself. It can be there's groundlessness in a transition. So take better care. Find out what are your coping mechanisms. Are they healthy? Sometimes they're not. Eating the entire box of chocolates is really not a healthy coping mechanism. Having one piece and being present with it and its deliciousness is fantastic. So this is skillful means. Waking up, taking responsibility, the humanness. So it's okay that you're never gonna completely get it together. I let go of that several years ago. I'm so much happier. Right? I was a perfectionist. You know what that's like? Perfectionist and a control freak. Can I tell you what that was like? And do you know what it was like working for me? It was a nightmare. It's your worst horror movie. I guarantee. Okay? I like to think I'm in recovery. I'm not sure, but I'm trying. I'm trying. But I also have a sense of humor about it. I'm aware of these things about myself. I see when they arise. Right? And now I have healthier coping mechanisms. And I even have little things I say to myself. Back off. You know, this is not your issue. You don't need to control this. Let go. I had a mantra for a year. Let go. Let go, let go, let go, let go. It's very helpful. Watching with the mind, okay? So you're not going to get it all together. It's okay. I notice like my mistakes and things. And I'll see things that I have an idea about. I want to finish this. I want to do it. And now I'll be like, you're not going to do that. You might do part of it. Do you really want to do it? If you really want to do it, move it up in the priority list. And more likely it will happen. If not, if it's going to stay down here, just know that you may never get to that one. I'm okay with that. So again, can you be clear about your priority list? That lends to happiness. You have to write it down sometimes. Seriously. What are your priorities? What are your priorities? And I'll just give you an example. Is one of the things I will say to you is find out now, please, what gives your life meaning. What gives your life meaning? Many people are confused about that. What gives your life meaning? A second component of that, giving your life meaning contributes to your happiness. But here's a second thing, and they work hand in hand. When are you happiest? When are you happiest? And I'm not a pie in the sky. You know, the people say Americans always want to be happy. No, I'm just talking about deep contentment. Can you yourself figure out, when do you experience that truly? Truly. So I thought, and this was my thought process when I got into meditation, I was really, when am I happiest? Because I was doing this retreat, like a group retreat. And then I noticed, what my mind told me was, oh, I'm happiest on the beach holiday. I love that. And then I kind of meditated, taking myself into a day on the beach holiday, and another day, and another day. And then sometimes it got a little boring, honestly. And I love more than anyone beach holidays. That used to be my thing. You know, maybe get a friend or just something. But sometimes it was kind of a little bit boring, okay? And then there was also the days before I was a Buddhist, certainly before I was a nun, and the beach holidays included alcohol, drinking alcohol, and maybe other things, okay? But after a while, that got boring. Got boring. If you were drunk and we're at the seaside, and then the next day you're hungover, and then you drink again. But then it would, you know, it just got boring. This kind of. So I really had to look at it in meditation. How happy was I? There were moments of happiness. It was really fun. Parts of it were fun, and then Right? So somehow then I started working at centers, and I was always interested in what makes you happy. Will I be happier doing this? Okay. So I left a really good career that I was happy with. I was satisfied to some degree. It was a very good kind of thing I was doing. Slowly I got into the Dharma, gradually. You know, I didn't do anything rash, gradually. And through that I started on the side using my skills to help with the Dharma. And then eventually went and lived full-time at Dharma centers. That was a big step. That was a hard transition. That was actually a hard transition. I had less money. I had friends questioning what I was doing from my non-Dharma life, doubting me. I was doubting me. Is this the right move? Can I reestablish my career? I don't want to leave it too long. You know, but what happened is when I went to sleep at night at the Dharma centers, I felt more content with what I was doing. I'm like, this gives my life meaning. I want to do this. I like this. And then what I found was, when we were planning a very big retreat, and many people would come, and sometimes it went on for a month, and we'd have like 80 people there, and a big teacher would come, right? And I noticed how happy everybody was, including me. And I remember one night, I just suddenly had this little ding, and I'm like, I am really, really happy right now. Like deeply happy, satisfied. From planning this big event with all these people and having this wonderful program unfold that really helped people with their minds. So I kind of, you know, was a little like, that's interesting, you know. And how's the beach holiday doing in my mind? No, honestly, I weighed them. I was like, this one is better. This is better, you know. And so I kind of looked at that, and then I noticed another time, some months later, we planned another event, and I noticed how happy I was. So something about that turned me on to that, and what I started to do was then direct my life in a way that I could do more of that. Do you see what I'm saying? So you have to, don't wait, figure it out now. If you're not clear, sit down with yourself. Try to notice different events in your life. What fed you? What nourished you? What helped you when you went to sleep at night that you felt really satisfied? You know, this, or you had little things in your mind, this is what I want to be doing more of. Can I do more of it? Because sometimes there's things in your mind that say, no, I can't really do that. You know, I knew people that had an option to go more into the Dharma or develop their career. Okay, one of my friends, I just saw him in South India at these teachings. He went off into the career and the retirement and making sure he had all that, and he's a little lost now. He even says that. He sees other people that they got into the Dharma, they were doing this, they were running the center, somebody got ordained, but they were doing more retreats, he hasn't chosen that kind of thing, and he's later now kind of, you know, so figure it out now. Sit down, figure out what is feeding you, what is doing it, and move yourself. Try to figure out, what can I do? What kind of adjustments can I make? You don't have to give up your life. It's not like, I'm not going to talk to my family anymore, they're not Buddhists. No, that's not useful. But what realistic things can you... I didn't do any of this rashly. I gradually moved into this space, you know, based on noticing what was nourishing me and what wasn't nourishing me. So it was a slow progression, and different opportunities presented themselves to me, and it's what kind of choices do you make? But it was easier to make the choices because I was clear about my priorities. Okay, so based on that, what I was saying is, when you want to do your priority list, right? So when I noticed, well, I was happiest doing that, so one of my priorities, I want to serve living beings. I want to serve at a Buddhist center. I have these skills running, you know, administrative management, so why don't I use them in a Buddhist center instead of politics? Look how politics is going right now in the United States, right? Boy, is that a waste of time, okay? So what about a Buddhist center? What if I use it to develop a Buddhist center? That sounds pretty good, that's possible. But slowly moving in that direction, okay? And then in this ambiguity of there's going to be suffering, this is samsara, is it possible to increase our tolerance for instability and change. So you're aware I'm not good with small changes. So that's part of that practice, you know, to tolerate, because this is the boat sinking. This is what we're sitting in right now. This is how it's going to go. This is samsara. So the more I can kind of wake up and deal with it, you know, the happier you're going to be. And you see people totally set off when one change happens. Then a big change comes. You're probably in a bigger change. How's it going? Am I somewhat fluid with it, or rigid, resisting? Does that make sense? How can we make friends with unpredictability and uncertainty and embrace them as vehicles to transform our lives? That's a hard one, right? Unpredictability and uncertainty. Okay, so I don't know if some of you have heard of, I think she's American, Brené Brown. Does that ring a bell? Brené Brown, okay? She has a book, new book, I think it's called maybe Rising Strong or something. Anyway, Brené Brown has TED Talk. She's on a TED Talk, if you look at any of that. These little 15, 20-minute informative talks. And I don't look at a lot of them, but occasionally somebody sends me an email. Look at this, watch this. So they sent me one with her a couple of years ago about vulnerability. I was having a very hard time at a center I was running. Very, very hard time. Okay? And I felt completely vulnerable. Totally exposed, weak. I might label weak, I'll add that in. But I felt vulnerable, was really the presiding feeling. Okay? This is samsara again. This is the boat shifting around, like that. What's going to be my response? And so she had this talk on vulnerability. And what she says is, our culture is probably, if I say vulnerability to you, what comes up in your mind? Anybody?
Being wounded, getting hurt.
Getting hurt? What was the first thing you said?
Being wounded.
Being wounded.
Ego.
Ego. The ego. The ego threatened a little bit?
Yeah.
Yep. What other things come up?
Weakness.
Witness?
Weakness.
Weakness. Yes. Weakness. All these things.
Not capable.
Not capable, right? So for us it would be probably a negative vulnerability. Okay? My father is almost 89. You know, I look at his vulnerability growing old. He's actually, he's okay, touch wood, you know, he's doing okay, independent to some degree. But, you know, looking death in the eyes right now and noticing things not working with his body slowly. Degenerating, it's normal, it's a normal process. I see his vulnerability, but when we get in there and we laugh about it, he gets stronger. He gets more aware, more present, more comfortable. Okay? Isn't spirituality getting comfortable with the uncomfortable? That's what I see it as. Getting comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know, when I'm comfortable with the uncomfortable, I'm happier. I'm more peaceful. Like that. Okay? So vulnerability, what she says, Brené Brown, is vulnerability because you might feel weak and incapable of doing something, and the other things you guys mentioned. And she says it is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. I see all those things as positive. You're giving birth to that in your vulnerability. A system maybe, you're going along, it's not working as well. There I am at the center. Something's not working here. Something's not functioning at all. Not functioning well. What are you going to do? You're going to figure out some creative way to change it. Innovate. It's exciting. That's exciting. Sometimes you need to be on your knees to see it, to wake up. You know. So, and I know some people that have said, and she talks about in the TED Talk having a nervous breakdown. Whether she actually has a real one or not, it's hard to tell. Okay? But she talks about, you know, I guess she's doing some kind of sociology, PhD, and she realizes she's done all the wrong research, and she's like, and I'm having a breakdown. Well, sometimes it's healthy to have a breakdown. Why? The system going along the way it is not working anymore. It breaks down. But maybe the system the way it was going along was unhealthy. Let it break down. Let it fall apart. Again, because we've got a situation where you're never going to have it totally together. Right? But you're trying to hold the pieces together. You got really lousy paste and glue. but I got it together. You don't have it together at all. Yeah. So the beginning of the happiness is waking up to, I don't have it together at all. That's okay. So Bodhisattva warriors also go to battle with all the other beings out there that are going to tell you that's not okay. You don't have it together? So I don't pay attention to that anymore. It's again the lemmings jumping off the cliff. Just because everybody's doing it, it makes it right? Doesn't lend to my happiness. You have to check up, and I ask you please, I'm just giving you information. So please check up thoroughly on everything I'm saying. Please investigate what I'm saying. Please try it on yourself. Okay? It has to be real for your experience in your mind, for it to take hold. I can't force you to do anything, and I'm not interested in doing that. But I have some useful information that has helped me. So if you're kind of like, oh, let me take that thing, what she said. Let me figure out my priorities. Let me figure out how I can stay present with my discomfort. Yeah. Because if you stay present with your discomfort the first time, which is the most uncomfortable, generally, I'm practicing being present with the discomfort. So the next time it's easier. The next time it's easier. After that it's easier. After that it's easier. And sometimes you're just kind of being in the discomfort, and I'm okay. Because this is samsara. The boat's sinking, and I'm totally okay with that. Right? And because the boat's sinking, you don't sink. Mind is fine. Like that. Even when you're dying. Even when you're dying. Okay, so please do check up on everything. Does it work for me? Is this really... You have to go home, do your exercises. You know, try it yourself. Okay? So she talks about vulnerability, creativity, innovation, and change. And sometimes the system has to break down. You know, and let's hope, if it wasn't functioning, that you put the pieces back together in a new way. That's our spiritual practice. Every day I feel like I'm newly evolving. Showing up with my mind. What's going on today? Mind's not in a very generous space. So what's that about? Oh, okay. I know that's a habit I have when I get threatened or this is happening or when I'm tired. I know enough about my mind to know, you know, and now, you know, you get into your wise women years. I look around, some of you are in your, I'm going to call wise women years. And so you know, when I'm really tired, before I snap at somebody, why don't I just remove myself from the room? You know, or get some rest. You know, realize that I'm not going to go to that thing at night. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go to sleep early. I'm going to take a bath. Because I really need a break right now. That's wisdom. That's your wisdom. So tomorrow you can show up more refreshed. Okay? That's innovating. Like that. So sometimes you need the system to break down and fall apart. I don't find that to be I wouldn't label it negative. I wouldn't label it bad. You know, because on the other side of it can be this huge positive change. So transitions can be tricky, and they're also incredibly powerful times in the transition. What I found in my own transitions, because in the past I didn't like them, is now I used to be like, okay, transition's coming, buckle your seatbelt. You know, I'm on the ride. Right. No, now I don't buckle the seatbelt. I'd rather just go with the flow. I see it a little bit more like, sometimes I've been to India a lot, and I love India, but this last time when you're sick in India, when you're sick a long time in India, it can be, and it's dirty. And so at one point, at the end of the flu, and this was just a few days before I was leaving, I was really, really sick. And I was still going to these teachings, and one of my nun friends, she said, you know, and I always like sometimes when somebody comes up to you, you know you're sick, and they come up and then they'll be like, you look really sick today. You know, I know I'm sick, that doesn't make it better, right? But I felt really sick, and chills came back in the afternoon. I'm at this teaching, and then I just was feeling really done. And I said, I'm just exhausted, and I'm not getting better, and then one of my nun friends, she said, sometimes you just need to leave India. You just need to get out of here. So I left. India's great, and a lot of people ask me about India, and sometimes it's hard to describe because it's so many things, and I say, you know, it's like the river. And you get in, and what happens is the best thing is just let the current carry you. And then it's magical. There's so many things to see and winding, and it's amazing. But what happens is, for most of us, we get in, and I'm going to control the river. And I'm going to try to control where I'm going in the river. And then you're miserable. And India's like that. You can't really control what's going on. And you know, they've got, how many people do they have there now? 1.5 billion or something? You know, they've got a lot of people moving around in India. And there's a flow they have. They just kind of make it work. I'm amazed how they get along. And they get along quite well now. It's almost a developed country, really. So again, it's like, so where in my transition am I in the river just noting and observing? You know, meaning I'm noting in my changes, my mind's sinking right now, I'm depressed, oh now I'm anxious, now I'm doing okay. Now I'm taking care of myself. Now I'm listening to people. I'm watching the messages, and it makes the transition, I found, so much easier. So much easier. So different ways you play with the change and okay. So, and here what she's taking this fundamental ambiguity of being human, she's taking it from a war correspondent, Chris Hedges, okay? He used this phrase, the moral ambiguity of human existence, once in his war reporting. You can imagine, you know, being a war reporter. And she says, I think it's referring to whether to cling to the false security of our fixed ideas and tribal views, even though they bring us only momentary satisfaction, you know, or to overcome our fear and make the leap to living an authentic life. Are you living an authentic life? Something to ask yourself, right? And where are the areas where it's not authentic? Can I work on those and adjust that? And there's things I know in transitions, and I have no idea what your transition's about, but I've had friends that left longtime partners, you know, after a variety of reasons, you know, changed jobs they were at that they loved for years, of certain things that they just had to shift something. Had to shift something. It wasn't their authenticity. It wasn't what was leading to an authentic life like that. Or how many times are we clinging to this false security because of our boxes, our compartments, our fixed ideas, okay? Tribal views. So the tribal views are your culture is telling you to do a certain thing. Your community is telling you to do a certain thing. Your family, your friends, your peer group. I've had that a lot. The first time I went off to Asia, alone for 6 months, and my friends that I thought were extremely progressive, because I was in this whole political arena, well, politically they were very progressive. Personally, they were not. They were very threatened by my going away. Why are you doing that? You're going to have gaps in your CV. Can you imagine how horrible to have gaps in your CV when you're 26 years old? Really? Like that's a fixed idea they had. Don't have gaps in the CV. Right, yeah. Gaps in the CV was my vulnerability, so I innovated, created, and changed. Why? Because when I came back and had this 6-month gap or something, potential employers asked me about it. What happened for that 6 months? Oh, I went to Asia. I traveled in Asia. Well, they found that fascinating. They're like, were you alone? Yeah. You were alone? A woman alone? Where'd you go? Oh, I was around the hill tribes in northern Thailand. I went trekking in Nepal. And, well, that got me the job. They were very happy to hire me. But, you know, so you know, you get some fixed little box. This is safe, but is it really lending to your happiness? How can we relax and have a genuine, passionate relationship with the fundamental uncertainty? Again, the groundlessness of being human. Can you embrace that? The groundlessness of being human. Right? I'm on the road a lot, most of the year, and people ask me about it. Are you exhausted? And you know, no, I'm being on the road. I'm being with traveling. You meet a lot of interesting people. You know, I can just be with it sometimes. Sometimes I'm tired, yeah, and then I'm just going to be with being tired. I'm tired, like that. That's all. I don't need to make a bigger statement, leverage. I don't need to resist it. This is what I'm doing. I'm a touring teacher for the FPMT. That means a certain thing. There's a part of it I love. Love meeting new people, love coming to different centers, love coming back to centers where you're working with people over stages, you know a little bit more of what's going on for them. Okay? But yeah, it has this other side of it as well. So I can be with that. You know, how am I being with it sometimes? Okay? So she also goes on to talk about this anxiety of being human and how her teacher would look at it. This anxiety, he said, in the face of impermanence or change, isn't something that afflicts just a few of us. Okay? It's an all-pervasive state that human beings share. Okay? But rather than being disheartened by the ambiguity, the uncertainty of life, what if we accepted it and relaxed into it? What if we said, yes, this is the way it is. This is what it means to be human. Okay? And decided to sit down and enjoy the ride. How often do you do that? Right? So you go through a big transition. My sister went through a massive one. Her husband died, leaving her with a 10 and 12-year-old boy. He died tragically from suicide. It was awful after a long illness. Okay? It was a nightmare. I would label it at one level a nightmare. Okay? Because she went through that, came out the other side every year, it got easier, 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 easier. She's remarried now. Her boys are grown. They're doing well. They're, you know, but she has a whole other resource now to support other people going through that. She knows what it's like. She's bigger. She's bigger now. Bigger space here. Okay? So it can look like a horribly tragic thing if you want to move through it in the right way. You know, so not that she was all the time, but for the most part, you come out more expansive. More expansive. On the spiritual path, that's what your spiritual teacher is trying to do. They're trying to stretch you more. So Carrie and I were talking a little bit before when I arrived. So he's a newer director of the center, and I've run a bunch of centers for some years. And there were times, and I'll just say this for Carrie's benefit, but for all of us, right? There were times Rinpoche, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, the main teacher, he'd come to the center, show up for some retreat or something we'd planned for months, and then and then in the middle of it, you thought you had it all every day. Okay, we've got this going, and we've got our 80 people here, and everything's. And then Rinpoche would throw something, and we need to do puja now. We need all the offerings. We need, I didn't have that plan. It wasn't on my agenda, because everything's going along okay. Now we got this sorted. Everything's working smoothly with what we've set up. No, then Rinpoche just lobs in there another dynamic. What are you going to do, right? So what he's trying to, and my mind would say, no, I can't do anymore. We're always, I can't, means I won't, I can't. And then we would do it. We would do it. And then you stretch and you're bigger. And I remember Rinpoche said to 3 people at this one retreat, he wanted them to create this stupa, not huge, but for someone who died in our community, and he said, you 3, you need to make the stupa. And one of them said, and he said, you have to do it in 2 weeks or something. And they said, well, what if we can't do that? And Rinpoche looked at them, and I love this phrase, and he said, that thought does not even exist. That thought does not even exist. And I had never thought about that before. Thoughts have amazing power. They have incredible weight, as much weight as you want to give it. So I remember one of them came back to me, they said, and then Rinpoche said, that thought does not even exist. And we were all like, whoa. Whoa, we were like, wow. Because it was powerful. It really taught me something of, I notice the thoughts that get going, and the limits, no, I don't want to do, no. And I'm off engaging and using whatever compassionate wisdom I've developed to check those thoughts. So do you really not, can you really not do that? Do you, different things to check. Can I do that? Can I push through? And then you find you're more expansive, you're bigger. Or to know your wisdom when it's not wise to do something. Why? Because you're tired. I was sick with the flu. What I'm normally doing after the program, what you do is you're at this program with the Dalai Lama, South India. Most of the people there are monks. But all these great teachers in our tradition were there. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was there. And every other major Rinpoche you can think of in the Gelugpa tradition was there, for the most part. Okay? So what you do in the break times when you go back to your houses, wherever you're staying, is you go around and you try to find these different lamas, some are female, whatever, and you'd make offerings to them. You'd have a kata, an offering scarf, an envelope, and you'd go and you'd make a connection with them, and you might go with a group, you might go with a translator if you have a question to ask. And when I was running centers, I went to invite them to our center. They're a captive audience, they're all there. Sometimes in the evening they were hosting pujas and ceremonies that you could attend, and it was fun. It's fantastic. It's like a total Dharma blast. Really, you just blast it. You know, it only lasts a week or two, and then you go back to your country and like that. Okay? So you try to do this. Well, I couldn't because I was sick. So my wisdom said, you need to rest right now. Fortunately, I wasn't running a center. I didn't need to make all these requests. But I managed to get out on the couple days I felt better. I managed to be well enough for one ceremony we wanted to do one night. I was well enough to be there. I felt fine. I could do that because I rested the other days. I had to pace myself. Wasn't well enough. That was okay. Okay? That was me sitting down and enjoying the ride. I have the flu. That's why my mind was happy. I wasn't resisting having the flu. Oh my God, I have the flu. Oh, what's happening? Why does my body ache? What am I going to do? When am I going to get better? I mean, that's just anxiety. It was like, I have the flu. What do you do with the flu? You drink lots of hot liquids. You sleep. What else can you do with the flu? You can't take anything for it. You know, a few symptom relievers. Okay. Yes, I was heavy into the ibuprofen. Okay? I mean, it was amazing when I got to England, and finally I tracked a few days ago and I went, I haven't taken any ibuprofen today. Like, that was an exciting, I'm like, I think I'm getting better. You know, no headache or no body ache or something. You know, so there's great things to get you through. Okay? So I want to talk about another thing that you're doing in the groundlessness, and what we're doing from habituation of meditation, trying to work with the mind, makes you happier, is you want to first wake up and be aware of what your mind is doing. Let's say it's doing something you don't like. Okay? Step 2, can you do something different? Do something different. How do I learn what to do in meditation? I practice doing something different. I give you an example. Who has a difficult person in their life? Okay, you're not alone, I have a feeling, okay? Right? We have the jerk at work. We have different people. We have some people in our families, in our communities, our neighbor. There's somebody out there that's pushing your buttons, okay? So in a meditation, slowly, this is an analytical type of meditation, put the person across from you. Okay? You had a bad interaction with them that day. So can you, what I have to do is, in the interaction, I'm not able to catch it. You have a disagreement, an argument, and you're angry. Or there's words exchanged. Something didn't go well and now we separate and it went bad. And the moment I can't think about it, that's why I sit. This is coming home for me. I'm on the road all the time, right? So I always have my practice. I'm always home here, where I'm sitting. Doesn't matter, wherever I am. I just came in earlier tonight. I went in that room, I sat for a little bit. Great. There I am. Great. Me and my mind, you know. So you come back to the mind. This is where I have to do the work. At the end of the day, wow, totally blew it today with that person. Big, angry, whatever. I was so angry. Maybe I didn't express anything, but so I go right back into the situation. I'm going to analyze now. What happened? There they are. I notice, immediately when I put them in front of me, I'm tight. You know, I can't stand them. I don't want them. But okay, go back in the situation. What they said, what I said, what they said, what I said. Back and forth. Okay, then leave that. Okay? Then you have to ask yourself some questions. You analyze. What was my motivation? What did I want to accomplish in this interaction? Did I accomplish it? What did they want to accomplish? When you fight with somebody, you never think about that. Not thinking about them. Just me. All of a sudden, I'm turned to them. Bodhisattva warriors are focused on the other person. What did they want? Did they accomplish it? I don't think either of us got what we wanted. Or maybe they got what they wanted and I didn't, and I'm, okay, now, another step. Okay? Just as I want to be happy and don't want to suffer. They want to be happy, they don't want to suffer. Isn't that interesting? We want the same thing. We have something in common. They have a different way of going about being happy and not wanting to suffer than me. but fundamentally we want the same thing. We have a second thing in common. We have Buddha nature. We have Buddha nature. Buddha nature means you're not a Buddha, you have potential that can awaken into a fully realized being, a Buddha. Everyone with a mind has that. Even the jerk at work has Buddha nature, just like me. Now you have two things in common. I never thought about that in relation to them. Interesting. How much do I know about this person? If it's a close family member, you know a lot about them. But do you really know what motivates them? Sometimes my father lashes out at me. And I can get real snippy if I want to react that way with him. But I realize he lashes out because he's afraid. Because he can't do what he used to do. That's scary. He forgets more often. That's scary. Right? So I understand that. So why get upset? But you think he's motivated by something else. Maybe you don't know this person that well and you have no idea that their child is sick, they're having financial problems, they had a breakup in their relationship, they hate their job. You don't know. That's what could motivate them. Okay. And then what if you could do a little bit of an exchange and put yourself in their shoes? We have this expression, put yourself in someone else's shoes. It's a huge expression of bodhicitta. Okay? It's actually one of the methods of developing bodhicitta, called equalizing and exchanging oneself with others. It's a very high-level practice. It was a secret teaching, because it includes Tonglen, which is a bit radical. Why would you want to take on someone's suffering and give away your happiness? But what if you put yourself in someone else's shoes and you imagined in your meditation you're looking out through their eyes fighting with you? What is that like? Did you ever think about that? What it's like to fight with you? What is it like to fight with you? How is it for you?
It's embarrassing because it does bring rapid objectivity. I have done that, not very often, but more often. And I'm difficult, as I perceive others to be difficult, if not more.
Yep.
It's a really good mantra, that one.
It's a great practice, right? Because I could tell you it's very, very unpleasant to fight with me. I always win, right? I'm always right. No, not anymore. But it's very unpleasant to be. So when I saw myself, I'm like, God, that's nasty. This poor person is in front of me. I'm struggling with them, but they're struggling with me too. It's not just me. They're not just doing it to me. I'm doing it to them. Okay? So these are just little ways to get at it, that you go back to your practice, take it back to the cushion. We have to. We have to. Showing up for your mind. Okay? And then what you do is, at the end, this is the fundamental thing you have to try. At the end of the meditation, and you can do it in stages. You can do it in stages. It also doesn't take that long, really, when you're doing it, but you do want to get in there, is then you do, a role play. We might call it a role play, meaning just go back into the situation. They're going to say exactly the same thing they said to you in the fight. Okay? Your responsibility now is to practice a new way. That's when I said do something different. Do something different. You have to practice it. Okay? You're going to respond in a more beneficial way, in a more compassionate way, in a more loving way. It could be very, very hard for you to do it. That's your job. That's doing something different. You have to rehearse it in meditation, and you might have to rehearse it, and rehearse it, and rehearse it, and rehearse it. And the 80th time, the person's in front of you, right? And all of a sudden, spontaneously, the automatic behavior that you practiced comes up, automatically. Why? Because you rehearsed it. That's why we practice, to make that familiar, make that pattern familiar. I'm already very familiar with anger, and attachment, and pride, and jealousy, and fear, and anxiety, and depression. Very familiar with that. So what I want to do is I want to practice some healthy behavior again and again. But it's going to take effort, and I'm going to have to do it again and again and again on your cushion, and then suddenly the 80th time, something shifts in the mind, and now I'm in front of that person, and I access it. Exciting. Let's do something different. Okay, step 3. So first you're aware, you do something different, and the third thing is familiarize yourself with what you did. So again, then it becomes automatic. And can we, just to go on a little bit more, and then I'll take some questions, Can we resolve to embrace the world just as it is? You know, so seeing everything we encounter, we usually see everything good and bad, pleasant, painful manifestation, but see it as a manifestation of awakened energy. Is that possible rather than the duality? This is how things are. Can I just accept sometimes this is how things are? But with my compassionate wisdom, I'm going to check. Because in the face of social injustice, Bodhisattva warriors have a responsibility to act. So you don't leave everything out there. Somebody's beating somebody up. No. But you're constantly checking with the mind. Can I do something here? Then what can I do? Motivated by compassionate wisdom, okay, I'll act. If I can't do anything, you have to practice letting go. Moving on. Make sense? Questions? Comments? Yes?
You said something about politics. You used to be in politics, and look at the state of politics with Donald Trump, I think, in America.
He said the fateful words, okay?
But the way Mandela, Gandhi, the Buddha himself, the Dalai Lama handles politics is quite amazing too. And that I therefore ask you to invite Trump to your Buddhist centre in America and inject some compassion. He can refuse, but why not? You know, he's a human being with wrong views, very racist views.
Right.
And I'm half Indian. I feel it, but I forgive. But that's my question to you, really.
The question is actually,
Ask Donald Trump to come to your Buddhist centre.
which Buddha center? Because I'm not with a Buddha center now.
Well, maybe the Dalai Lama could get together with some kind of invitation, because
Why don't you do that?
I'm not up the Buddhist hierarchy. I haven't
Right.
got that spiritual status or learning.
Yeah.
I'm quite low down.
Right.
I'm quite ignorant still.
Yeah, I wouldn't know whether it's really worthwhile to do that, because I don't think there'd be interest. Usually with Buddhist centers, it's more from your side that you'd have it. We're not really a proselytizing kind of group. It's just not the nature of it.
Okay.
And I think there'd have to be some interest, and I don't think he's particularly interested. I wouldn't know, per se, but probably His Holiness, if he found that to be beneficial or something, he might try to initiate that.
Yes.
You know, he has initiated some things. I remember Lama Zopa Rinpoche meeting with the King and Queen of Nepal, who were quite a controversial couple, and the King especially, and he met with them at one point to kind of pacify some things that were going on with the centers in Nepal. So, could happen. You know, you could put that energy out there, pray for that to happen, like that. I think on some level, I more so kind of pray for enlightened leadership, more enlightened leadership in the States. There are some good people there. It's just whether the dominance of ignorance will overcome, or whether people will wake up. And we've been fortunate to have 8 years of somebody intelligent, I would say, like that. I'm not saying that he's perfect, but certainly better maybe than what could be. So maybe there is a vein where that might dominate or prevail, you know. But I think some of it we've got to pray, and some of it you can do certain things, and if you choose to participate like that.
Thank you.
Yes, Catherine.
And when you were talking about when you've had the argument with somebody, or you had problems with somebody, I found, you know, with somebody, say a family member, that you've had a long-standing way of interacting with them, and it's not working, and then you do the meditation, you talk to Green Tara maybe, and then you come at them, I'll rephrase that, you
Great.
try a different method.
Okay, so that's a great thing that you caught those words.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our language is very powerful, right?
Yeah. So the different method is more compassionate, but it confuses them, because they actually, the buttons that are normally being pressed between you, it's a different thing.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, they can't deal with that. They
Mhm.
absolutely can't deal with that, and it actually creates can create more of a distance.
Mhm.
You know, there's maybe not the antagonistic thing going on anymore, but you know, what's happened for me on a personal level is that it's happened with maybe, you know, once when I began to meditate and become more involved in the Buddhist tradition with with FPMT and so forth, there were a few people that became alienated by it because they couldn't deal with me. I'm not saying I suddenly became this saint and this wonderful, compassionate person.
But you are a saint.
Well, we know in some ways, but you know. No, seriously. I mean, it's. I found that very interesting because it's difficult. But then, I suppose the question is, does that mean that it's better that actually, for the time being at least, it is better that distance has been created? You know, because I found that's happened with some people.
Yeah, what I found is, and you can ask yourself again, am I being authentic? And sometimes it's better to just be an example, and they'll deal with it. And I'm amazed how initially there's resistance. From their side, they'll distance themselves, they'll judge you. I had all that happen with friends, and because I just towed the line and kept checking, like, no, this is good, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. This is where my life feels most meaningful. I think that my connection to FPMT or this center or Lama Zopa Rinpoche, I think it's very, very, very good for me. Like I definitely, so I stayed with that truth. I felt like that was my truth. And stayed the course, and they came around in the end. You know, initially there was some like, what are you doing? You know, and they came around amazingly. And I have some non-Dharma friends, so they were very threatened, and there were judgments, there were criticisms, minor fights, you've been brainwashed. I mean, it was really, and I just kept going with what I was going and never cut them out of my heart. I mean, it was still, I'd call them, we'd get together, sometimes a little bit less, and they all came around in the end. I'm amazed. Sometimes in unbelievable ways they came around, very supportive now. You know, and I'm not even, I look like this now. And that was just, when I became a nun, that was just way too much for some of them. Shaving off my hair. So I think the patience, but checking with yourself, am I being authentic, and am I still practicing compassion, keeping my heart open to them? You know, and the people that fell away was really 1.5 of them fell away as far as a close friend, and they're so unhealthy, these 2 women. I mean, one of them I'm in touch with via email just because she has no other friends, but they're so unhealthy that I have very, very little to do with them in my life because they're just super, super toxic, and there's no, whatever you do, they're just gonna, they're always choosing, you know, unhealth, disease, basically, and they're always choosing suffering. So it's like, yeah, I still love them, but one of them I really don't have. I tried to connect with her last year. I was in Florida. Called, we set up an appointment an hour before she canceled. We set up another lunch where I have a lot of students down there, and I was trying to meet with students, so I purposely made this time. She canceled again. And the 3rd time, finally, I think I said, well, I'll be at my apartment if you want to come over, because I was already there. I knew it wasn't going to inconvenience me again or bump another appointment. And I'm like, well, I'm here this evening. If you want to come over, call me. She never called. Just, so sometimes it's...
Yeah, but can I just, so just to clarify that, because I think that's the way I feel about a couple of the people. I just think they've chosen suffering, and they don't seem to be able to, and you know, the word toxic as well, you know, although I'm kind of a bit reluctant to use that.
Yeah, they're not the best words to use, but I was just,
no,
it's
I'm not
I know.
saying incorrect to use it. I'm just saying, I'm just thinking about these particular people. I don't want to think that way, but it's the choosing of the suffering, and that you see that they're not willing or able to move from that. However, but then it's best just to kind of go, okay, but still have the open heart for it, right?
Definitely, like I still love these 2 women. I mean, they're very old friends of mine, and they also suffer. So compassion really, etymologically, is to suffer with. So sometimes I feel like I suffer with them. One of them just has horrible anxiety attacks, and her daughter's a drug addict, and I mean, it just goes on and on. I could, so I really feel that for her. I really want to try to help her. That's why I called her. I hadn't been in touch with her in 20 years. The last time all she did was judge me and like really lay into me about, what's this Buddhist crap that you're doing? What's wrong with you? I'm like, I needed that, right? But I still show up. I'm a really loyal friend, so I called her. I found out where she was, and somehow, and so I think that my heart remains open to her. That I will try again. In April, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to try again. And my father's like, "You're crazy. What are you, nuts?" Because he was down there with me at one point. And so I think that space where I keep the space open, loving space, that never, I don't feel like that shuts towards them. Not at all. And it's hard sometimes, but, and you never know, and I always keep the possibility that change is always there. They could change. Things could change. I've seen that happen too. They could suddenly have a new space in life, and something changes, and they,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's been helpful for me. Other questions or comments?
Loving compassion, and then you were talking about, which is very appropriate for me, trying to change your way of relating to a loved one. And I find that very useful to see that there are steps that can link back to the tightness and the anxiety inside and the idea of Tongling. And you could talk a little bit about that, how they connect.
How to connect the
process
awareness
of the tension in, I mean, what I find is that I'm very aware of my anger coming up with people and frustration and not being able to contact with them. And I realise I have to deal with my own.
Right.
And you've taught something else which was very useful. Thank you about how to go through that.
Yes.
But that seems to link very strongly to, if you want, my heart opening up, actually being more with them, and more less of any kind of grasping self of myself to the situation.
Right. And your agenda and what your outcome, what you want the outcome to be. Sometimes we also have to just allow that I'm forcing something and wanting them to be a different way. And maybe one of my friends, it worked out better. I just accepted that this is how she is, that she's a flake, technically. I mean, that she basically can't get any, she continues to make very, very poor choices. Something that I would label poor choices. But she's even said that and acknowledged, because I know I've made some really stupid decisions and has trouble making decisions. So can I just kind of, instead of fixing her, just accept that that's who she is?
And offer that love up, really, isn't it? I'm just thinking like it's almost like, that's very useful, that, because it's not trying to resolve it in the way that I, in any form of I, want.
That I think
but
it should
actually
be.
just to show that compassion all the time and have that confidence to
That's right.
take that forward all the time.
I think it's helpful, and it's pacified a lot of stuff in me, getting away from the fixing somebody, and not pity, but really just being with her in her difficulties. And now, but partly what's been done is I took some action, because she kept continually asked me for advice. But I'm talking 30 years. She has asked me for advice for 30 years. And if I'm with her in close proximity, and I lived with her for a couple months once, it became a psychological counseling service. So friendship to me is give and take. There's a mutual thing. If I'm down, you're there to support me. You're down, I'll support you. You're good, I'm celebrating with you. It has to be that, but it hasn't been that way. She doesn't have the resources. It's all about her. Every moment's about her. This focus. So slowly, now what I've consciously done is I don't offer advice anymore. She'll ask me, but I don't, like in an email, I don't respond to that part of it. But I will listen to her, and I will call her a couple times a year. I allot an hour, because it'll go on for 3 hours, and it's all about her, and I just allot an hour, and I listen really well. And occasionally I'll say, oh, okay, so I'll play back to her, okay, so your daughter couldn't do that or something. Well, that's a shame. But I don't offer advice. I just had to make a decision, because she never listens to any of the advice. She'll ask a little bit.
I have a daughter just like that.
I'm sorry, it's difficult. It's
It's
but
all right.
But
It's
I
good
still
though,
love
for
her.
me. It's like it's making me
Yeah,
look
yeah.
far
The
more
acceptance,
And the loving side. Trying
And the
to
loving
be
side.
more
I do
vulnerable
love my
inside,
friend.
actually, because it's,
Yeah, and she knows I love her. I just keep that there, and that feels very present, the love, which is wanting her to be happy.
yeah,
The truth is, it's wanting her to be happy. Attachment is, I'm going to fix you.
yeah.
I'm going to tell you how it's going to be. No, my love is, and I'll say sometimes, I just want you to be happy, you know. Hope it works out for you, I'll say. Oh, I hope that works out with the school. I really hope she gets the thing with the new teacher. I hope you get that job. I just send that out there. Like it's coming from a good place and like that. Bye, darling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Enjoy. So we are coming to the end of our time. Is it 8 o'clock or is that, or how did, you're okay, people, I know some people need to go. But I think that's a very important part, is just keeping that space and not getting into the fixing, because then people become a victim if they need to be fixed, like that. So let me just see if there's anything else I was going to say here. And here again, the discomfort associated with groundlessness, with the fundamental ambiguity of being human, comes from our attachment to wanting things to be a certain way. I've wanted that for years. You know, I'm a forcer. I came into centers, you know, I would try to turn some centers around that, you know, needed some more professional development. And I always had this thing of, I was like jumping the gun and anticipating. But now I notice more, like sometimes there's a way, and there were conflicts in the community. There were people disagreed, and some, you know, and there was a way like we had to show him how it's going. But sometimes if you just allow things to be, they work themselves out. And I've learned a lot from that, stepping back. But you also need to develop the wisdom to know when to step in versus when to hang back and let it naturally work out. Like that. It's a little bit like, did you ever get, I'm sure you get this, you get an emergency email from somebody. And I don't mean emergency of blood spurting out of somebody's aorta, but you get kind of like, I need this, do you have the tickets, do you have the best way I can get a ticket to London, what's the thing, I need this now, and let's say you don't see the email for 2 days. If that happens for some of you. This is why I have tech holidays. I don't see the email for 2 days, and I'll get back to them, or sometimes before I even answer the email, I get another email back, thanks, I got it sorted. You know, so sometimes you don't need to respond to everything. The more you respond to emails, the more you get back. Sometimes you just let it hang out there for a while, and somebody's, I don't need the help anymore, thanks, got it. Like that. So I don't need to have to, this attachment, I have to have things a certain way, like that. And so the other thing you can do, when you notice the anxiety coming up due to this attachment, to wanting things to be, this edginess, it can be unnerving, it can go to that level, okay? It's similar to the way we deal with our pain, okay? One popular way of relating to physical pain, I find helpful, can be mindfulness in meditation, okay? It involves directing your full attention to the pain and breathing in and out of the spot that hurts. Looking at the pain, does it have a shape, a size, a color? Is it hard? Is it soft? Does, you know, so instead of trying to avoid the discomfort, you open yourself completely to it. And I mean discomfort on any level. Meaning, I'm just fully being with it. Again, the more you experience and practice that, the more comfortable you become with those moments. I used to do hospice, I still do this with any Buddhists that are dying, but I was trained in San Francisco at the peak of the AIDS epidemic, and they trained me as an emotional support counselor, and then you're teamed with people that were dying of AIDS, and in the late 80s people were dying. At that point, first it was 6 months, and then it was 2 years. They would live 2 years and they would die, and it ravaged this whole community. And the guy I was with the longest, I was with him for 2 years. We were very, very close friends. He lived with his lover, and at the end it was just horrible, this disease, how it ravaged your body. So he had excruciating pain, and sometimes the medication didn't kick in. So I came over to his house, and it was about 2 days before he died. I came to the house, his lover like opens the door and says, I'm so glad you're here, great, I'm going out. You know, he couldn't take it, and I come in and my friend is screaming in pain from what was going on with his body, and the lover just was going to leave. And so he's on the hospital bed at the edge, sitting on the edge in his gown, and screaming at the top of his, like really screaming. And I'd never been around this before, and you want to fix it, and you want to take it away, and he had taken pain meds, it wasn't working, and so I didn't know what to do. I was completely uncomfortable, completely freaked out, actually, and I knew I couldn't leave him, you know, and busy myself down the hall in the kitchen, something. So I decided, and it took everything I had, to walk in the room. I asked him if it was okay to be in the room. All he could do was nod, while he was like, ah, ah, can you imagine, like, you're just, like, louder than that. And then I finally said, can I, is it okay if I sit next to you on the bed? Like, I kind of went right in there, right in the face of it. Can I sit? And he, you know, and I just put my hand on his back, and I said, is this okay? I said, you can tell me when it's not okay. I said, I'm just going to stay here with you. And he was like this, and he screamed for 45 minutes. And I was clammy, I was totally flushed, I could feel my heart pounding in my, you know, and I stayed there, and my heart calmed down, you know, after like 10 minutes or so. And I just stayed there with him, and then the pain shifted. It's not going to stay forever. And the pain suddenly subsided, the medication kicked in, and he suddenly was like, okay. And then I managed to get him back into bed, and he relaxed, and then he went to sleep. And he always said to me, you know, until he died, he said, you didn't leave me. He said, it was the best thing you could do was just to be there. And it was the hardest thing I ever did. It's one of the hardest things, just to stay there with his pain and rage and everything else. But once I did that one time, then I was much better to do it for somebody else. I didn't have the fear and like, I can't stay here, what am I going to do? Like then, because I'd already practiced it once. Going right in there to the depth of your fear. Sometimes you have to look at it. What's really underneath fear for you? If we're afraid of certain things, we're afraid of dying. What's underneath that? What do you think's underneath that? Anybody?
Love, I think love.
What's that? Sorry, who said?
Love.
Love?
I wouldn't be afraid of people if I wasn't afraid of getting hurt and have bad experiences, of which I've had plenty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had a lot of violence, that's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
So love comes first. My mother's to love, but then she hit me for years.
Mm-hmm.
I still love her. I forgave her.
Mhm.
7 years of meditation. But the love is under the fear, the awareness.
Well, the love solves everything. So if you can get to that, but there's something that motivates the fear that's a negative. So the love is your grace, fantastic. If you can bring it all back to love, it will sort it all, seriously. I mean, wanting the other person to be happy, okay? And loving yourself. It starts with self-love. And that's not a selfish thing, as long as your motivation is good. You know, as long as you've still got to focus on others. We need the self-compassion and the self-love and the self-support. Honestly, to get enlightened, you have to start, you've got to sort it with yourself. So then His Holiness says, then be selfish like that, but with a good motivation. Okay? But what's underneath the fear? There's a negative thing going on.
There's a grasping.
Being alone.
Being alone?
Being isolated, being alone.
Yeah, it can be. And what do you think's under that? About that? What were you saying? Grasping? Or
Grasping for a self and then trying to hold on to it.
sure, that's related to it for certain. Other
Not
feelings?
knowing.
Ignorance, not really knowing what it is.
Which is related to the self,
Yeah.
not understanding the self. Sure, meditating on emptiness battles all of that, cuts all delusion, okay? But basically, loss of control,
Mm.
Oh, yeah.
Ego control.
loss of control under the fear. You know, we've got a certain idea of how we're going to control this. Under the loneliness, the being is, I don't have control over that. You know, so sometimes that really freaks people out. And what can you control?
Your perspective.
Your perspective?
Your mind.
Your mind. Same. Your mind. That's the only thing you can control. That's it. So let go all that other stuff. But if I can control my mind and I am lonely in this moment right now, let's say, and you go, so how do I want to be with that discomfort? Okay, what's that about? Aloneness is powerful. Aloneness, very positive. Loneliness is one of our delusions. So can I be comfortable being alone? Can I be comfortable going out to dinner alone? Going to the movies alone? Having a meal alone? Spending the weekend alone? What's the problem with that? That nobody wants to be with me alone? What if I'm okay in myself? Right? I'm going to die alone. So what if I'm okay with my mind like this? You know? Then from there I can kind of sort out, the healthier you get, the less holes in you. It'll take care of all those things. You'll end up connecting with people. But from loneliness, it's hard because people smell that on people. It's different than aloneness. Aloneness is powerful, in a good way. So it's just facing up to some of those things. Like, yeah, I break up in a relationship, I am going to be alone now. What's that going to be like for me? Do I not have any friends in that space? Am I okay in myself? I could be okay in myself. Right? I can find my own innovation, creativity, and change in myself and move from there and start to grow from there. And then there's other ways, healthily, I can connect with others. A more healthy place possible. Just something to look at. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful for people. Are there any other questions or confusion? We could go on and on. This could be a whole weekend. I'm sorry it's so short. Anyway, I hope there were some helpful things that, a little bit, but hopefully we can elaborate next time I come and go a little bit more into that. It would be fantastic.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much for coming. Thank you to everyone again that showed up and also supported this. And I'd like to just, in closing, we also dedicate merit. So I'd like to, we had a motivation at the beginning. I would like to dedicate, meaning invest all of the positive energy we may have created here. And I'd like to take it and really think about investing it in our being able to move along a path to full awakening. Because then we're unlimited in benefiting all others. I'd hope that we could fold it into keeping an open, loving heart in the face of uncertainty and difficulty, and showing up to try to develop a daily practice if we don't have one going already, so that I can work with just being, and being with whatever's arising in my mind at any moment. And again, mostly, can we open our hearts to all the other suffering on the planet, and staying there with that, and finding a way to really promote the love out there on the planet as much as possible, and really be able to be of the most benefit to all others. I'd also like to dedicate to all those on the planet who need additional healing. May they receive it completely, immediately, and may all the conflicts in the world be resolved instantly. And may there certainly be enlightened leadership in our countries all of the time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Venerable Amy. I hope that this will be the first of many more visits, and I hope that you come back to Leeds as soon as possible and continue, maybe a weekend next time. You know, maybe
Thank you very much. Yeah, that'd be great.
Too much.
Thank you
This
so
small
much.
thing for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So have a good rest of your weekend, and be happy. But mainly be content. Like find a space where you're okay. It doesn't have to involve a lot of activity sometimes. Sometimes not doing, which is part of mindfulness practice, like the non-doing is a very powerful place where you can be. You can be. Sometimes I just watch my mind. I'm never bored again. You know, you watch your mind. Really, there's always something going on in your mind, and I can watch little negative patterns come up, but gently watch them instead of judging myself. Watch positive things go, kind of rejoice a little bit, like, oh, that was a nice thought to have, or, you know, like that. It's a nice space, kind of working with the mind. Thank you very much. Thank you. Enjoy. So I am in Liverpool this weekend, if you happen to be passing by Liverpool. And then I'm in Cumbria the next weekend, and I think that finishes the tour. And if you're interested in the future, if you come over to the States, amymiller.com is my website, but there is a teaching schedule, and sometimes you might find me, usually I'm here once a year back in the States, so thank you so much. Thank you. Enjoy.
Fiona Method, she would come.
Sorry?
Fiona Method would come. It's a daughter's 18th birthday today.
Who is that?
Yeah, he's there last time.
Oh, yes. How are they doing? Fiona and Mike?
Yeah, they were.
And it's her daughter's?
18.
She's 18 now.
Yes.
Even though they all look like they're 18, the three of them.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing. This family I stayed with last year, they were so lovely. Please give them my best.
Will do, yes.
Yeah, they were really, really, I think it was around her daughter's birthday last time I came. Yeah, so sweet. Very sweet, yeah.
Thank
Please
you.
say hello.
Will do,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.